Nielsen, and I work for Buckinghamshire County Council, which is a local authority in the UK, and Matt Dodds, who works for Aylesbury Vale District Council, which is also a local authority. We'd like to show you a project which sort of more positive side maybe of the things we've seen over the last couple of days. So obviously building work poses a great risk to birds and bats, but there are also positive things that can come out of it. So we'd like to present our experience of the Aylesbury Peregrine project. So we'll explain some of the challenges of the project and also the excitement that this project has created. We have a lot of nice pictures, and we have a little film where we'll sort of see the follow the life of our peregrines over 3 months. So the peregrine falcon has suffered massive declines in the UK over about from around 1960s due to poisoning, pesticide use. So they were really restricted to the very extremes of the country, mountainous areas and coastal areas. And as a survival strategy, they've started coming into towns. They're a really glamorous bird that captures people's imagination. And there's currently around 1,400 breeding pairs in the UK. So the idea was to put a nesting platform on the tallest building in Aylesbury, which is the offices that I work in. It's a 12-storey building, and Aylesbury Vale District Council Biodiversity officers came up with the idea in 2002 of putting this box in the building, because in theory it was the perfect place. There's a lot of pigeons, as it's in the town. It's a very tall building, but the building didn't offer any natural nesting opportunities for the birds. Unfortunately, the sort of decision makers at the county council didn't see this vision of how great this project could potentially be at this point in time. But luckily, the project team didn't give up. And as had been predicted, in 2006, a pair of birds started using the tower consistently. They'd sit on the window ledges, they'd sort of fly around. And these amazing displays that the birds created outside the office windows was really the best advertisement for the project, so that we managed to get our managers on board and get them to see that it really was a good idea to try and put a nesting platform on the building. So a lot of people doing a lot of talking managed to finally get agreements. But that, getting the agreement to put the box up there was just the first step in a very long process. So there was a number of hurdles that had to be dealt with before the box could go up. There was the design of the box, the design of the brackets, to hold this 40 kilo or so box on the top of the building. We really want to make sure it doesn't fall down and hurt anyone. So all this sort of health and safety and check-in meant that it was until 2008 that the box actually went up on the building. So on this picture we see Dave Short, who has really been instrumental in getting this up and running, creating the box and working on it. In retrospect, this time that was spent on developing the project was really beneficial, and it meant that a lot of people had got together and created a partnership. There was people from Aylesbury Vale District Council, Buckinghamshire County Council, the Bucks Bird Club, the Hawk and Owl Trust, and the Aylesbury Barn Owl Project. So that made sure that the project was as well considered as it could possibly be. And as the box went up, we were really thrilled to see that just within a couple of weeks they'd started to sit on the box and sort of investigates it. So the first nesting occurred in 2008, which we were really excited about. So one egg was laid by the birds, but unfortunately it failed to hatch. And having breeding birds on the top of a building where a lot of maintenance work has to be carried out, sort of again meant there was new challenges, because the birds are protected against disturbance while they're nesting. So we had to set up procedures to ensure that people didn't go on the roof. But having these birds actually nesting meant that, you know, we thought there's more this project could do. And it's obviously very difficult to follow a project, you know, a box that's 12 stories up in the building. And as public bodies, for us, it's very important to ensure we engage with the public. So therefore, with financial help from an anonymous donor, it was possible to buy 2 webcams that was installed on 2 sides of the box, and then that could be streamed directly onto the website. Due to problems, you know, IT problems and wherever else, and more people talking, it meant that we didn't get the cameras up till 2012, so this year. But luckily, we did manage to get them up, and the first images of the 2 Aylesbury peregrines roosting was taken in March 2012. So these are some of the first images, and well, actually, but the female is a lot larger than the male, up to 15% larger. Too much excitement. The sort of first real images that came out of it was, as the camera was turned on, was actually the pair mating. It's the first time in history that this behaviour had been recorded in Buckinghamshire. And very luckily there was a council meeting that evening where it was possible to take this footage to show them this, which did a lot of wonders for the project. People were excited about that.
Yeah, I was actually at that meeting, and that was the best launch we could have possibly had in terms of gaining support for the project. Amid much excitement, we witnessed the first egg 2 days after the mating footage, and I think we were just really taken aback at quite how excited the general public were. They really latched onto the project, and very quickly it built up a large amount of momentum. It's a bit like a soap opera. And then the next day, 2 days later, another egg was laid, and we would be spending vast amounts of time looking at the computer just to see whether we were going to get any action, because of course the birds were sitting on the eggs for most of the time. So the slightest movement was greeted with great excitement. But what did strike us as quite unusual, and I suppose just when you really have a really good view of a situation like this, you're learning about behaviour all the time, and the thing that really struck us was how much of the time that the males spent on the eggs. And I was sort of naively expecting it to be mainly the female, but it was quite the opposite. The male didn't want to get off the eggs. So again, another 3 days later, the third egg was laid, and this was sort of the ultimate proof that our pair had matured, because what we forgot to mention was the fact the first year that they nested in 2011, they laid an egg and sat on that egg for about 2.5 months, and nothing actually happened, which presumably was due to the fact that they were quite young birds. But this time, you know, more successful, and it was all very exciting. What was interesting was that the birds seemed to be, rather than put off by, they were fascinated by the camera, and you can see here studying her reflection in the glass, which is quite nice behaviour to watch. And here, you know, we waited with bated breath for the eggs to start hatching, and luckily we had a night shot facility on the camera, and we could see the first eggs starting to hatch. And at this point, people were getting very obsessive about watching the camera. And this is our first chick ever born, as far as we know, in Buckinghamshire, first peregrine chick, looking much like a little ball of cotton wool. And here is the female tenderly feeding the baby and her new brother, the male and female. Not that I can tell from this picture, but and that was on the 2nd of May. Now, the adults started to bring back prey items, which was, again, really fascinating to observe this behaviour close up. And certainly in the future, it's something we'd like to really examine better as to what prey items they're actually bringing back. But it was, from what we observed, it was mainly feral pigeons, and there was a spike in the year of juvenile starlings. And very quickly, the box started to look like some sort of butcher's shop, with bits of bird everywhere. But surprisingly, we got very few complaints from the public about how gruesome it potentially could have appeared to some, which surprised us actually. People who were so enthusiastic about the project, they were fascinated rather than repulsed. So we started quite a few, obviously as Maya said, engagement with the public is a big part of what we do. So we really utilised the opportunity it provided as best as we possibly could. So we organised events in the town where people could come and watch the peregrines, look at the live feed, and you know, I can't stress enough how surprised and thrilled I was that the general public really got involved and they really seemed to enjoy it. And it wasn't just the people that you would expect, it wasn't just the bird club. And natural history buffs, there was market traders. There was one market trader that had a little bird log, so he'd brought a chalkboard where he would record the activity that he had observed. I think his profits must have gone down as a result, because he wasn't concentrating on his job, but it was lovely, it was really great to see. So we finally ringed the birds and handled the chicks in the middle of May, and as well as a normal ring, we put on a coloured ring, which meant that we could observe the birds and identify them at distance. And we also could confirm that one was male and one was female. We actually organised a competition with the local radio station for children to name the bird. It was very embarrassing what the results were, so I think this is either Perry or Fluffy. So, as I said, people became obsessed, and so the next big date was the fledging, and there were lots of people camped out watching constantly the box just to try and record the moment. And although we haven't got it exactly, that's a parent bird, one of the parent birds flying away, but you can see the two youngsters hanging about the box, and that was the moment of their fledging. Luckily, you can see that the shape of the building provided a degree of security for the birds once they were starting to fledge, because there's plenty of ledges below the building, because that's one of our great fears, that they would plummet to their doom just as they were about to fledge. And here you can see, this is taken about 20 miles away after they fledged, one of the youngsters being observed over a water meadow nature reserve. And so, if it works, this is our little montage of our peregrines year. So here we see the first stages there, the eggs, that's the female sitting on the eggs, and this is an exchange. This is obviously quite an interesting moment. Actually getting the male to leave the nest was quite tricky at first, because he didn't want to get going, and we've got some lovely footage of the female actually budging the male off as the and the way the male used to get the female off the eggs was to bring back prey items. So he'd bring back great big, there you go, bring back some food. And this is quite interesting because he offers her the meat and then eats it himself. It's quite nuts. We've got some fantastic footage from both of the cameras, and here we've got a brilliant entry onto the box. And here, the nice exchange, you probably just saw the female flying away with a prey item there. And that's the male jumping off the box. And this is my favourite dismount. You ready? Whee! So the next stage is chicks hatching, and they're obviously so wobbly. This is a great little bit here. I think that's going to find its way onto YouTube sometime. And then a second chick hatching, as you can see. And we actually observed there was plenty of food. That was the thing. So although the third egg didn't hatch, there was so much food that we actually observed very little fighting between the chicks, presumably because they were so well fed, and they grew. There was hardly any difference in terms of the size of their development. Some tender little moments. It's hard to imagine a killing machine being so gentle. It's a nice little exchange there. And this is as the chicks are growing. They grew at a startling rate, actually. But you can see the level of bird remains in the box is quite substantial. And this is them just getting bigger. And again, unfortunately, this is an unfortunate victim of the birds. Well, I said most of it was was pigeons and starlings. That one that they were feeding was actually an Arctic tern. It's rather unfortunate. And here we are, of the birds being ringed, which is very exciting. To actually get your hands on these things, this is the first time in history in our area that they've been recorded breeding. And this is a very nervous moment for me, putting the chicks back in the box. Every time I watch this, I'm thinking, please don't drop it, please don't drop it. So this is getting ready to fledge, and you can see them warming up their flight feathers from quite an early age. But again, watching that gives you a heart attack because you're worried when you're falling off. And you can see that one of the parent birds in the background flying around, and then in he comes with a prey item. That's again a juvenile starling there, and the female just flew past underneath. So the footage is just fantastic, and hopefully next year we're going to try and improve on that. So this is getting very big now and perfectly able to eat their own food. So this is just the last stages. One of the chicks has already gone, and this is the final chick just warming up, ready for departure. And it really left quite a hole in people's lives when they're eventually gone, because they had nothing to look at. And I think council productivity soared after the peregrines had left, because virtually everyone, and this is something that I said was really surprising, some of the people you'd least expect, like IT people and marketing people, were glued to the screens to see the peregrines. So next year, pigeons beware. Not quite the killing machines that they're made out to be. It's a very bold pigeon and a very slow peregrine. Right, so as I said, the development of the project was a fantastic success, and as much as anything because it provided, showed people the importance of biodiversity in an urban setting, and they acted as the best ambassadors for urban biodiversity. Certainly people that wouldn't normally be interested in nature were fascinated. People were coming from all over the place to come and see the peregrines, and just thinking about nature conservation. And ultimately, we were very lucky that this, one of the most glamorous birds in the animal kingdom came to live in Aylesbury, and hopefully next year we can build on this with sort of better scientific rigour, more promotion, and other schemes, all sorts of avenues which we are pursuing to make as much out of the project as we possibly can. So just finally, I would like to say thank you to Paul Holton, who's the project lead, Dave Short, who's done the majority of the work, Bill Robson, Norman Shepherd, all the people listed here in our wider partnership that have helped to make the project a success. Thank you.
Ďakujem veľmi pekne za zaujímavú prezentáciu. Na záver našeho